So welcome everyone. This is week 2 CHCLEG001. We have tonight, and then we have one more week after this one. I'm going to be your trainer for Cert 4 in youth work on the Tuesday night, because you've got a change of trainers. My name's Vicky Hannah. I am a youth worker. I do work in the sector, and I also teach the Diploma of Youth Work as well on a Monday night, and Diploma of Community Services. So I'm a regional manager for quite a large area north of the Sunshine Coast, based in Bundaberg or Tarrabalaine Bunda. This is my 27th year in working in this sector, in this space. So look, I move away from youth work from time to time because it gets fairly full on. Sometimes you've got to step away from it. It can be really intense depending on your target group that you're working with. With the legal and ethical framework, there's a few different perspectives around this. One is your experience as a worker. If you're already a sector worker, then you understand that you work within the framework where you are legally and ethically bound, but you're also legally protected in the workplace as well. And this unit is about looking after you, making sure that your clients are looked after, your peers and your colleagues. Yes, to the clients, but it also gives you a little bit of a view around what your employer needs to be doing to make sure that you are safe in the workplace, both legally and ethically. So can I just get a thumbs up of who is actually a sector worker already in this space? Yes, Mel? Only one sector worker? Okay. Who's Kirsten? Yep, great. I just finished marking some of your work actually. So I recognize the face. So and then who is not not progressing or feeling a little stuck with their studies? Is there anyone here that's
me? Can you hear me?
Who's me?
Faith. Sorry, I'm having a real problem trying to get on the camera and everything. I can't find my controls.
Faith,
but I'm listening in.
Your name has popped up, Faith. That's all good. So Faith, say that you're struggling a little bit. Is it the knowledge questions or the skills role plays?
Well, I think it's everything. I'm brand new to the sector. The learning's getting a bit hard for me too. I'm sort of stuck at that place where I was supposed to interview the elder from one of the do an interview with an elder, which was a previous.
It's called CHCLEG002.
DIV. Oh gosh, hang on. Yeah, we're working yesterday now, aren't we?
Yeah, so when we're talking about where you're stuck, always come in and say the unit that you're stuck on and task number that you're stuck on.
Okay.
Because it helps you keep that critical thinking around your work. So, and it also breaks it down so it doesn't feel quite as big for you, Faith. So if you just, I'm still working on the CHCLEG002, which is around working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island.
That's it. Yes.
That's right. And so when you say you're stuck, have you contacted the learner support officers?
No.
So over to you to reach out, use the supports that are available for you.
Yes.
So I've created a unit for anyone, just a little bit of a resource for you in that unit. If you don't have someone, an elder or a First Nation person to interview, I've created a resource for anyone who might find that a bit easier. In the instructions, Faith, it actually says it's ideal if you have someone to do that with, but it does not say you must. So always read the instructions very carefully. So what it wants to know.
I don't have to speak to an elder. It would be.
I'll just get you to circle back and read the instructions and have that discussion it for yourself, because most of your answers are there, but you've got to read your material to understand.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If you're stuck, go to your learner support officers, and they will help you. But for this particular unit, if Cheyenne had everyone working with, I will do a separate recording and send that out for you around slides. I don't like chalk and talk. I want to put you straight to work and get you straight deep dive into this particular unit. So with task 1, and you have the unit content, the knowledge questions, class will always be about doing the assessment and feeling like we can take some of that away for you. So who has their device open in front of them, their porthole, and has access to task 2, CHCLEG001?
I can probably do that.
Great. Okay. So I probably need, saying here we've got 34, 35, that means we've got 34 learners. So I'm going to put you into smaller.
Which one was that again?
CHCLEG001 task 2.
Task 2.
It's all the case studies, Blake.
I can't seem to be finding that on my learners thing.
It's okay. Matthew, question?
Would you like us to open that up alongside? Is that what you're saying?
I encourage everybody to have their device there ready to go with. I'll need a couple of leaders, team leaders in this case. So, Katie, I'm going to volunteer you. Matthew, if you can find that page and open it up. Kirsten, you've got it in front of them. Yep. I just need one other learner who has their resources open, their page open.
I do. I have mine open.
Is that work legally and ethically? Task 2.
M1 of 3 or 4, 2 or 4, 2 or 3. Sorry, interrupting.
I've got mine open. Open it as if I'm going to do the assessment. Is that what you mean?
Yes, you'll need to go in and click on task 2.
Yep.
And the very first one is Luca. Let me just show some of the others. I am going to need some volunteers.
Oh yeah, case study.
I have Katie. Let me just share this with you.
Vicky, do you need that the case study open?
You will, I don't, but you may.
That's fine. Yeah, okay.
I just need, is that you?
Virginia.
Wonderful, thanks. Virginia, Katie, Matthew, and I'm sorry, I know I have one other. We are recording. Let me just see. So
is the case study Harriet?
It's a Juka. I want you to go to task 2. To open that up in your page, there are 6. Sorry. I'll jump out for you. This is there are 6 case studies, and the very first is Juka.
Okay, well I've opened up the wrong.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I've got mine up.
Give you time.
CHCLEG001.
Yes.
Yep.
T2 or 4.
Task
task
2.
2 or 4. Is that in the learning materials or the assessments?
In your assessments.
Okay. I'll just open that.
So Kirsten, have you got that in front of you? Yep, great. Matthew, you're still going?
No, mine's up.
You're good. Virginia, are you okay?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
mine's up too.
Yeah, just I'm really mindful we've got 32 and a group, and is a pretty wild group to be able to hand you, narrow that down, but I think we'll be good to go.
No,
So what
I don't know where I am.
Sorry, I don't know.
Yep.
So Virginia, Kirsten, and Matthew, all good?
Yep.
Great. I'll take you as my team leaders for this exercise. So put yourself in the framework. You're a youth worker. Work for First Access. First Access is your simulated employer in the workplace. And all of your templates, everything comes from you, a youth worker with First Access. This unit, this task 2, has 6 separate case studies for you to do. We are going to do one. The one we are going to do is JUKKA, JUKKA. What I'm going to do is put you into 3 breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, you're going to have a team leader. You're going to have either Kirsten, Virginia, or Matthew. And they're going to guide you on what is actually happening. And it's a little bit about, let me read you the scenario first. And all I want from the group is to be able to give some considerations around that. Okay, just have a discussion about what you think that means. What do you think is going on? Which are the legal, which are the ethical dilemmas happening in this case? For all these cases, that is actually what's happening. It's just asking you what might be the legal and the ethical consideration about what is happening for that client and that case. Okay, questions before I put you into your breakout rooms? Okay, let me just break you up. I will pause while we get...
Would you, sorry, just quickly, would you like us to fill out our assessment as we discuss it, or are we going to come back and discuss it after we've come back from our breakout rooms?
The team leaders would are very welcome to fill in the assessment if you like. There's 3 questions to answer straight after it, Matthew.
Yep. Sure.
So you can guide the team, the Kirsten, Virginia, and yourself. You can guide the group around those 3 questions, but it's not so much that I want you to do your assessment. I want you guys to be the team leaders for everybody that I put in your breakout room. I'm making you the senior caseworker. I'm delegating you over the responsibility. You've got all these other caseworkers coming in. And when we're talking about a few of our clients in a case study, we call this case conferencing. So I've got a team of 28 on my staff. So we have what we call a COP, which is community of practice every week. And every one of the staff have to bring in 4 to 6 of their case clients. And we discuss it. We don't talk about the name necessarily, but we talk about, I'm working with this client. Here are the things that are coming up, and you want input from your peers. So you're all peers, you're all working in this space, but you've got senior case managers, you've got team leaders who are going to guide you. They have 3 questions attached to every case. We're just doing one, we're doing JUKKA. Is that okay, Matthew?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. So you're in good hands with Kirsten, Virginia, and Matthew. If you're not sure, they have it in front of them. They know what the task requires, and they'll even read it out for you unless you have that in front of you. Okay, so let me put our team leaders into 3 separate breakout rooms, and then I'll assign everybody over.
Oh, I'm wrong.
Okay. So in room 1, I'm going to have Kirsten. It might have done this for me automatically. And if it has, Virginia. Some of your names I recognise. Virginia, I'm just going to move you to room 3. Okay, I have got a pretty even number. Just join. If you don't want to join a breakout room, please return back here to the screen and I will lead you in that space. Kirsten, we have 30 minutes. Okay. Everybody in? I've got a few of you not in breakout rooms. Can you join me on this page, please?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Blake. So Blake, you're off camera. We're not
Yeah,
recording.
I'm getting invited to the breakout room.
Join a breakout room. Can you just tell your room it's 30 minutes? I might gate crash. Who else have we got not in a breakout room so that I can help you with this? How did you go, Blake? Are you heading over to a room? Hi, Blake. Sorry, which room did you want to go into, or you don't mind? Debriefing. Okay, so we're just welcoming everybody back. If you're not speaking, could you turn your mic off, please? Just we're picking up a bit of reverb with the sound and that as well. So we'll have our team leaders jump into this space and just working on this task 2 out of CHCLEG001 and the questions. Kirsten, would you like to kick us off with your room and tell us how that went? And then anyone that was in Kirsten's room, can you jump in what you thought may have been an ethical dilemma for you in there?
Yeah, so our group went pretty well. We went through the questions and the scenario and yeah, came up with quite a few things to answer the questions. Yeah.
Great. So let's do a
Took
debrief
some
and a
notes,
summary.
but everyone else can jump in if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah, we thought the ethical dilemma was let's see, here I go with all those names again. The girl in the staff room that she was doing, Trudy, that she was, doing the big gossip and completely inappropriate with, talking about malpractice and things like that.
Okay. Sorry, let me just get the spelling right here rather than, oh, sorry. Okay, so expand on that for me a little bit, if you could, please. So what was happening for Trudy?
Yeah.
So we had the
Sorry. Go ahead.
unprofessional conduct, making the accusations about colleagues and clients, and accusations of malpractice towards the doctor, Zach's doctor.
Okay, so unfounded, we've got a staff member. There was a little bit of context around this staff member as well, a contracted staff member, perhaps someone that's not there all the time. So there can be quite a disconnect with casual staff or people who only occasionally come in. They have a narrow lens over the bigger picture, where the other worker, like Jurka, has a better understanding and may have more time with the client and have some information. Do you think Trudy was missing information, or do you think this was an ethical code of conduct matter going on for Trudy? What's your thoughts around that?
I think she was probably, we thought that she was probably missing a lot of the background information, like his wishes, what he wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you do then to assist Trudy in the workplace to fill that gap?
We thought maybe having a meeting with the manager.
So would you want to
and
report that up, do you think? Is that your thoughts?
yeah, on proviso that she didn't have the information, because usually she's a top worker. Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, do we have a duty of care to our clients to report something like that to our line manager?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. So we don't have to have an opinion around it, even if Trudy does, but we have a duty of care as well. What it does is some people vent, but we look at prevent. So we're not climbing in and judging Trudy because, like you say, rightly so, Tony, she's probably missing some background. That's why I believe in this scenario, they put that context there. She's a contract worker and occasionally works there. So the first thing we would go to as someone in a team would be, perhaps she doesn't have all of the information, and it seems reactive. However, their thoughts, she's actually put words to that. So the words then become an incident and become reportable. So that's your legal requirement, your duty of care to the clients and also to the organisation. I need to report this up. So then we go to, how do First Access want you to report it? And does First Access have a whistleblower policy? Yep, it does. Yeah. So, okay, that's good. Good unpacking of that. So we need to record what the person stated in our report. We could just approach the line manager informally and just say, look, I just wanted to let you know there was a conversation. I think it might be missing some information, some background, Tony, how you were saying that. I just feel that that might need your attention over it to give your line manager heads up. It can also be fairly unsettling if you don't get that dealt with fairly quickly, because the more times that, say, Trudy shares her thoughts and her perception around that, it could be disturbing to colleagues, and especially if another patient or a resident overhears it, or if Trudy is feeling anxious about it and sharing it and venting to others rather than just what you guys heard in Kirsten's group. Okay, what was the other finding there? Kirsten, what were the 3 questions your group had to unpack?
So the possible consequences if Zach was given antibiotics against the instructions of Samantha. So a good point was raised about legal action that could be taken if they disobeyed Samantha's instructions, as she's got the power of attorney. Also going against his wishes. So as an example, if he were to be given treatment and then respond poorly, passes away in hospital, and that's against his wishes, which is an ethical problem. And also, what else did we discuss? Yeah, there was a conversation about extending his discomfort without improving quality of life.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
So the legal is the enduring power of attorney. He already had that. He had assigned that over to his ex-wife. But you can see where they're headed with this is there's layers that are open to opinion. However, what overrides everything is the legal requirement until that was removed. If someone had concerns around that, and let's say that the client no longer had capacity to make those decisions or had verbalized to a worker, I don't want her anywhere near me, it would need to be revisited. The GP would have to look at capacity, and then there would need to be another assessment, and then a JP would come in. And they may revoke that, but it would need to have senior staff eyes over. So any reporting you do up is really important. So while Trudy may have an opinion, and she may even be running with that opinion, there are two separate things here. One is the legal requirement. The other is the ethical, that code of conduct that Trudy is running with. So when we're in a team, when we're in the workplace, your employer must, without laying blame or judgment against Trudy, must approach Trudy when the information is shared and say, help me understand where you're coming from, what you're struggling with. Now, that's the legal under Fair Work Australia approach to have, and it's yours as another worker in the workplace. So you may have an emotional response to that. However, you are always guided by your policies and procedures. That is your ethical requirement, is to follow the patient's directive and to work inside the guidelines of the policies and procedures of your employer, because you have a contract, a legal binding contract. So does Trudy. So when I'm working with staff who are struggling with something because the emotional is there, it's only one of two things. They either can't do what they're required to do, or they won't do what they're required to do. And this is where the legal and the ethical come in. The legal responsibility for the employer is, if you can't, let me show you how. That's education, awareness, revisiting the policies and procedures, the ones that apply here. If you won't do it, then we have an ethical requirement and a legal requirement as an employer in the workplace to let that worker know that they have an employment contract, they have responsibilities, and they have rights. And part of that is that they must work inside those guidelines that are there, that they signed their contract that they would do. So if they can't, then we circle back. Is there some additional training that I can give you around your policies and procedures? Or if you are struggling with this, Trudy, then you're having an ethical dilemma. What can I do to help you with this within the scope of your role? Because it's not her responsibility. Whose responsibility is it in Kirsten's group? Whose responsibility is it to follow? Yeah.
Bullshit. There's a little bit on the plate for you. No, I'll have whatever that's for.
Sorry, was that for us, Caitlin, or was that a side conversation? Okay, we might have, whoops. Okay. Let me just do. Oops, a little bit of, sorry, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping here. I think we were picking up. Everyone's working from home, so I totally get it. Okay, so who is the most responsible in that moment in time? Who do you think is legally most responsible?
Hold on, Vicky, I lost you with the disruption. So
That's all right. Who do you think is the legally responsible person in that case study?
Samantha.
Samantha has a responsibility legally to follow the wishes of her ex-partner.
Yep.
Yep, because she has been given that enduring power of attorney, and it takes a court and a solicitor and a JP to override that. And ethically, there must be other people brought into that space. What could happen to Trudy if Trudy doesn't take the guidance of her employer? What might be the consequences there?
Well, she could lose her job for not
Could be a disciplinary.
following guidelines.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Could be a warning, but it's quite serious, isn't it? Because the GP's involved, it's someone's reputational damage, it's the organisation's reputational damage. So it can be a real challenge for the employer. Okay, great. Thanks, Kirsten's group. All right, now we might take Matthew's group.
Okie dokie. For which question?
Just exactly what Kirsten just did. A debrief.
Oh, so we're going to go through again.
Yep, debrief from your room.
So what we've got, so for us, with the questions, we find it can be interpreted in several different ways. So we feel like we've got a couple of different answers, sort of thing, for what we got out of the question. But for the first one, we got something along the lines of by discussing confidential information openly. She did not uphold her legal requirements of her role.
Sorry, Matthew, could you just unpack that for me again, please?
The whole thing again?
Just that last bit. Sorry, you've got a couple of different perceptions. There could be two ways to go with this.
Yep.
What was the first way?
So the first way I put by discussing confidential information openly, and then amongst her peers and co-workers and things like that, things that shouldn't be discussed openly, just being that it's confidential towards Zach and Samantha. So I believe that breaches legal.
Yep, it is. The law, 1988 Privacy Act.
Yep.
Yeah. And the ethical is the trust, the breakdown of trust, because if someone hears, then what if you talk about me? Like I'm hearing you talk about someone else, but do you do that with all of us? So it can erode the trust in an organization and break down the culture. Okay, that's great. And who do you think had the legal responsibility? Did you share it with the same as Kirsten's room that it's Samantha? Is there any other legally responsible person there?
I feel like, I personally feel like Yuka has a legal responsibility to his client to, even though Samantha had the power of attorney and it would trump the Yuka's basically his say, but he still has a duty of care to his client to try and pursue the wishes.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that can be questioned in court, the duty of care. So there's a standard, the ethical standards and the practices, and it comes in under the Human Rights Act.
Human Rights Act.
Yeah. So Samantha may be distraught, she may be upset, but still following through. But you're right. I see Duca also having a duty of care because Duca's right there representing first access, making sure that the human rights are looked after, and that's your role as a worker. Excellent. That's great. Anything else your group wants to unpack and bring to the wider group?
I think that was about it, because once I heard how is it Kirsty and her group answered it, that sort of confirmed to us that was what the question was asking.
Great. Okay, so that's good. I like that you could see more than one perspective, which of course there is, the legal and the ethical, but some of those things are together. What trumps, in your view, is it the legal or the ethical?
I'd say legal.
It is, yeah.
Yep.
And behind everything that we do is intention. So
Yep.
even if it was unintentional and it was done in court, the magistrate may rule, because this definitely could be taken a lot further, especially
for sure.
around the reputational damage. It will be about your response, Duca's response, and it will be First Access's response the moment this is reported. Duca has no protection if Duca does not report.
Yes.
If you turn the other way.
Yep.
And then if other staff hear it, they have vicarious trauma and they have psychological safety under workplace health and safety.
Oop.
Also,
yep,
acts of law. So it can be very distressing. Every time a client passes, there's that ethical side of it, but you actually have a legal requirement like that. We can't jump there, because what action must I follow? You can have your own view by all means, but that's something that you keep, and you would do that in a debrief. You could go to your line manager and say, look, I actually found that really disturbing.
Yep.
I went through all the protocols. However, it's still on, and your manager, if they're not there, how can they possibly address something like that if we don't report from the bottom up? So as a worker, we have a duty of care to the clients, and we have a duty of care to our peers and yourself.
Yep.
Okay, good work. All right. And Virginia, how did your group go?
Sorry. No, went very well too. Pretty much what the guy said, we just discussed the same thing. So, you know, breach of confidentiality, make uniform judgment. You know, she just you know, she assumed that that was you know, the wrong thing to do. We is assuming bad intention. Said that Samantha probably just wanted to him gone, essentially, you know, not the wife, that the ex-wife, and not using the proper channel. So again, you know, it's so for her breach of confidentiality. And then with the second one, I think doing, you know, reporting that what's happening was it was causing more pain and legal problem to the, you know, to the hospital and to the patient too.
Mm.
And for the last one, it was right ashore. I'll see. Imagine that Trudy has been. So what we will say to our supervisor, actually. Kathy just done very well too, and he too, saying that they would just approach the supervisor and let her know that that's you know, what they heard, and that probably you know, she doesn't know about the legal what was it that you know, that Samantha, that she had a you know, that he decided to actually have you know, Samantha to do legal attorney.
Yep. Great. Thank you, Virginia.
I will say.
Yeah, very good. So, Rabbit.
Yeah, I noticed in the documentation that it says that he had it recorded on his med file that his ex-wife Samantha had medical power of attorney. That's recorded on a medical file, but would it be Duca's responsibility to ensure that that actual power of attorney documentation was seen and cited by the actual support worker to validate it?
Yep. Who would have the most responsibility? Good point, Rabbit. Who has the responsibility to read that? Is it the worker or the GP?
I would
So I would
suggest the
say both.
GP.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
suggest the GP.
Yeah.
They're the clinician, they're the treating person in that space. The worker could circle back, but it's a really good point, Rabbit. The worker can circle back and go, just for my own peace of mind, there used to be, I wonder if that's been revoked.
Okay. Yep.
Because it may not be current. I want to tell you that and that's why I want to raise here potentially the complications and unexpected outcomes here. This is grief. This is the space of grief and loss. This is end of life. People do not always respond in a calm and measured way. So Samantha may struggle. There may be regrets. There's a lot of family issues that are around something here. Duca has to be able to follow all the tasks and the requirements that that worker has to do. The GP needs to make sure that First Access has put all of that information in front of them. If they're working off old documentation, then it sits with the organisation. So you are protected as an employee, but not if you don't accept responsibility for ensuring that what you are doing is accurate. And it sits in the policies and procedures and the administrative side of it. So for Duca to circle back and go, is that enduring power of attorney that Samantha, the ex-wife, has, is that valid? Is that current? And it can happen. So I'm based in Queensland. In Queensland, there are 2 IT systems. In one IT system is where the next of kin is. In the other IT system is the treating casework, the ongoing progressive patient notes. Sometimes a worker will not go over into the other system and notify the next of kin when someone has passed or they've been admitted for a serious illness, even though the next of kin is listed there in the system. That is the worker's error and the department's error, and that's when it traverses the legal framework. So do you think that the next of kin should be notified, like Samantha, who's listed? Do you think Samantha should be notified if he gets transported out of the residence and over to the hospital? Even though he said, I do not want to die in a hospital, that was his wishes. But if the GP says we are limited with our clinical care that we can do here, I cannot administer a greater amount of pain management, they do have to go in there. Now, that is up to the GP, who isn't on staff. They are a resident and they're covered under a different area altogether. But the GPs go and visit those sites. It's the same when AMBOs turn up in a youth resi.
Yeah.
They're working for a Queensland government department, QAS, or wherever you are with your AMBOs. So it's not just this case study. It's always think, who are the players in this scenario? Where are their responsibilities legally, ethically, their duty of care? Have they worked within the scope of their role and within their guidelines? So I do look at Trudy's comments and go, well, I've got some work to do there. Let me bring Trudy into my office and let's have a chat about what's happening for you, Trudy. You seem really distressed and I'm hearing something. I'm just wondering, can I explain things to you, because you're not here all the time. Maybe there's some information I could share with you that would help you feel better about the decisions that actually aren't yours to make. So softly, softly, carry big stick is what Fair Work Australia is. If you are working within your guidelines, and you've done everything legally and ethically required of you, you are protected. But if you're outside those guidelines, expect someone to say, that's a line you just crossed. But you always give people the opportunity. Would it be because you don't understand? Would it be because we didn't put that information in front of you? And does she need that information to be able to do her job? Or has she stepped over a line and working outside the scope of her role? We don't know all of that information, but it's very easy to just read it and go, whoa, Trudy, settle down. You know, your first response is this could be very damaging for not just your employer, but for the GP, and it could end up in court because Samantha could be very distressed. And the one thing we know for certain around when there's a passing or a death is that people sit inside that anger and blame stage. It's part of the grief and loss healing cycle. So who best to blame but somebody? And if it's fueled by a staff member who is working outside their guidelines, that only complicates their grief. So you need to report up to your line manager and say, I need to let you know that there's an issue here. When you're answering these questions, make sure you've got those questions in there. If you're in the workplace, make sure that you have written that in your file notes. And every policy is how to, and the procedure is what to. So procedure is an action. You must take action around that procedure. The policy is, you know, how we do things, and a policy and procedure sits under the law, under the legislation and the act. What was breached here? I think Matthew's group identified the Privacy Act, there was a breach. Human rights, a breach. The legal discrimination, gosh, the Disability Act, the rights, the human rights, there's a lot of breaches potentially. But first of all, when we start a report or an incident, we make an inquiry. We don't automatically go to a complaint. Always start with an inquiry. If you don't, Trudy has the right to say, I was targeted. I didn't have that information. Had I had the resources and the information to do my job, I never would have said that. And so the employer must provide a safe place for you to work and provide you the resources to do your job. So Trudy may have a good case if we look at it through that lens. Trudy's rights. Rabbit.
Yeah, in this case, I'm sort of a bit confused how Trudy would have any rights to be made aware of what has occurred, because this Zach is not her client. Like it's like, to me, Zach isn't her client, so therefore what occurs with Zach is confidential to Zach and Samantha and the doctor and Duca. But the fact that Trudy wants to make comment about something that she thinks, you know, she's made assumptions of or whatever, she's actually not. Why are we telling her anything other than basically you don't have all the information? So you're actually incorrect in what you're saying. So you shouldn't be making those statements.
Okay. Trudy could take you to court if she felt like it, if she felt that she had been singled out and treated unfairly, simply because no, it is not her direct client, but as a person who is paid by First Access, she has the exact same rights as Duca, as an employee, contractor or not.
So my way of looking at that is does that mean that every other person that's working at that location has the right to be given information about Zach, Samantha, your doctor, and what actually occurred?
Almost. not in the kitchen if you're the one that's serving meals, but what is Trudy's role, Rabbit?
Well, she's a relief. She's a contract support worker who has supported Zach when Duca was unavailable.
Okay, so she has those same rights as Zach. Relief and casual are protected under Fair Work Australia as much as Duca. The gap here is knowledge. The gap here is she's relief, not less. And this is where Fair Work Australia jump in. It's like, oh, so because I'm a casual and a contractor, I don't have the same rights. So Duca has ownership and you just bring me in when you need someone to fill that. So I am his worker, but I am not a full-time employee. That doesn't mean that they don't have the exact same rights. There's your ethical stuff, Rabbit. But if she occasionally, if you share that client case, then you're all involved in it. Kirsten, I'll come over. Just percolate on it, Rabbit.
Yeah, so I was
think about
thinking about.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're right.
I was thinking about what Rabbit was saying as well. If you were, say, a manager or a colleague in this situation and you've got Trudy, would it be more appropriate rather than saying, you know, this was these were Zach's wishes, this is what he wanted, and outlining that, would it be appropriate to just sort of maintain some confidentiality, but say like, look, Trudy, I understand you're concerned about what's happened, but I can guarantee you that Zach's wishes were followed, rather than actually saying what Zach wanted or going into the details, like trying to give her some comfort, saying that his wishes were followed under his instruction and what was on his file, like going that way? Or do you have to disclose all of the information?
Oh, it depends on where the conversation goes. Let me put up this acronym for you. WAIT. Why am I talking? First of all, we must know what Trudy knows. And so we start here, the same as what we do when we're working with our clients, with our open-ended questions. So why am I talking to Trudy? Trudy, I've actually had a report and I just wanted to be able to discuss it with you. It's about one of our residents here. Is there anything you'd like to go over with me in the case of Zach? That's it. Start there, but all open-ended questions. You cannot be accusatory towards Trudy. Trudy still has rights. So in this case, so Rabbit, do you want to, how about, do you want to be, would you like to be Trudy? Or do you feel uncomfortable being Trudy? Who'd like to play Trudy?
Would I like to be Trudy?
Do you like to be Trudy?
Not really.
No, you don't. I can tell that. So,
I don't look good in a skirt.
All right.
So.
Belle, can I volunteer you? Would you like to be Trudy?
Sure, I'm useless at this kind of stuff, though. I'm good on the job, but yeah, not good in front of random people.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's just have. Do you want me to stop recording? Do you want this?
No, that's okay.
Good. I want you to be comfortable. So look, did you get a bit of a feel for what was going on for Trudy? Just general, it doesn't have to be accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey, Trudy, if you've got a moment, could you come over to my office? And I'm just about to grab a cuppa. Let's jump in the staff room, get a cuppa. Great. Okay, come over to my office. I've just got 15 minutes. So I just want to be able to catch up with you because I know how busy you are. Would that be okay?
That'll be fine.
Okay, great. All right. Do you have sugar? Okay, great. Let's go. Right. So let's start it off the way we want it to end, in a positive reinforcement, but firm inside the scope of the role. So look, Trudy, I just wanted to run something past you. I know you have worked with Zach in the past, and I do have a report here. There's just some notes around a conversation that seemed where you were unsettled. I wanted to know, would you be comfortable sharing some of that with me, what you're concerned?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
Okay, what's bothering you at the moment then, Trudy?
I just feel like in this situation, Zach would still be alive if it wasn't for his ex-wife butting in and
Yeah.
basically killing him.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you've been sitting with this. You've been feeling really upset about it.
Yeah, I just feel really uncomfortable with the fact I feel like if it was his wife, maybe I'd feel differently, but an ex-wife may not have the same sort of wants for her ex-husband as somebody who is currently with him, I guess. I feel really uncomfortable about the whole situation.
Look, I'm sorry, Trudy. I think maybe because you're not here all the time, I may have missed some of the information in the text file that would have been helpful for you. So what I want to do is I'd just like to show you that I had that enduring power of attorney that was Zach's legal instructions. So that's his directive, and he has named Samantha, and that was only reviewed 2 weeks ago, so it's fairly current. And I'm sorry that a lot of this information does sit in our office and it isn't there with you on a day-to-day basis, and I really needed to put that information in front of you. So if I miss sharing that information for you, Trudy, I do apologise. The unexpected consequences out of that is that it seems to now be beyond a conversation between yourself and myself now. And I've got an incident report here that, according to our policies, as you know, I do need to follow it up. So I was hoping that you would be able to fill in an incident report and give me your version of events there. And then also, after we've had a conversation, what you think as well. But have you got any other questions about Zach that you feel you need to be able to feel more settled?
No, I guess I'm just cranky now. I feel like someone's gone and snitched me out. I was just having a bit of an event. It's a very stressful job. It's a stressful situation. I feel like I raised some valid points and now this person's gone and had a whinge to you about it. If I was provided all this information before I was working with Zach, then maybe I would have been aware of this, but nobody bothered telling me. And now I feel like I'm in trouble for it.
Okay. Well, it actually, Zach aside, discussing a patient around others is actually a breach of our code of conduct. So that rides every part of your role. It is in our policies and procedures. So it's not specific about Zach, but it's definitely the conduct that we must adhere to. And the worker was doing exactly what we require. I can't be everywhere and see everything. And if they felt that someone had breached our code of conduct, that it is their responsibility, as it would be your responsibility. And I would welcome you reporting that up to me.
I feel like you've had that conversation before.
I honestly felt like Trudy and like I'm in trouble.
But Trudy, you're not in trouble. And I do want to reassure you, I will take on board what you have said to make sure that our relief staff, you're important and a valued team member here, that we have a code of conduct. And what I would like to do, Trudy, is just go back over some of that, not to spotlight you, but maybe it is time for us to do a refresher as a whole on maybe what our code of conduct is, and just bring that back in. Because you're absolutely right. It is a very stressful job. I know that we get connected with our clients, but we have to be very mindful of what we say, who we say it to, and where we say that. And if you've ever got any concerns at all that you're not sure about, you can come directly to me. And I want you to feel that you can, Trudy.
Okay, I do feel like I can. I just feel like this was more of an event than how I actually felt, I guess.
Okay, I understand. So please vent to me if you need to, if you're struggling with something, because we do have a lot of support for workers, and I do acknowledge and appreciate that it is very stressful, and that you're a dedicated worker, and that it is hard when we lose a patient, and sometimes we are just letting that out rather than, so it's just, there is now a follow-up, and you are part of the incident report, and I will support you with that around that. But I cannot say whether the GP is going to take that further. However, I do need to be able to make sure that I've supported you. Would you like to talk to me after you filled in your incident report?
Yeah, please, just for some clarification around how I access that information, so I'm not going into a situation like this without the knowledge and making these decisions afterwards. So I was feeling really angry about it, but obviously I didn't have all the information. So
Absolutely. And I acknowledge that we may have a gap in the sharing of that information, and we can definitely work better in that space with you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, Mel. Appreciate it. Okay, so are you feeling okay coming out of that, Mel, as Trudy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm hearing Mel say, sorry, let me just I've got to just a little bit of a I think I've got it. Sorry. I'm hearing Mel share throughout, like I feel like I'm in trouble, and that my job is to ease that. Okay. Now I've got it. All right. So my job is to look after Trudy despite the natural consequences that are going to come, depending on how the GP felt, Samantha, how far that went. Usually I would do an inquiry, and that's what I'm doing. Start with an inquiry. If it goes to a complaint, I still have a responsibility to support Trudy as well, because she is an employee. If it was unintentional, which I'm satisfied that it was unintentional, and she was venting and frustrated, usually mediation could work through this, where we would have a meeting of minds, and we would talk through that and what would be the resolution. So, Mel, if you were Trudy, what do you think would have been helpful, not just for Trudy, but for any other casual or contract worker there? What might have helped that?
I feel like just information going into the situation, as I was sort of saying, sometimes like I work in a high school and we work with a lot of difficult kids, and just having that information given to you, that it's not going into detail, but this might be a child's triggers, this might be this, like I think the power of attorney is a really important situation to know, and what Zach's wishes are and what the outcomes are going to be. That basic information is enough to totally avoid this entire situation, I guess. Yeah.
Point. Kirsten, over to you, and then I'm going to circle back to Rabbit. Kirsten.
Would it be worthwhile, like if you're a manager or supervisor in this situation, calling like a discussion for anyone involved in Zach's plan, to have a reflection discussion, opportunity to ask any questions and openly discuss that with everyone involved in his plan?
Yeah, in this case, I would say we almost would have to, because it went a little outside our usual protocols. There's another thing that's happened. Normally, everyone just goes about and fills their role, but in this one, yes, because there's another conversation around that. But always look at, when it comes to legal matters, it is about intent. If it was Trudy's intent to deliberately lay blame towards people and be combative, that's a different matter. But it wasn't. Trudy was working with not the same information. I gave you the story about the 2 IT systems in Queensland Health, and that's real, by the way, where someone had 6 admissions for suicide attempts, and they were dead for 28 days before their next of kin was contacted. So these are not made up scenarios. These are matters that will come to you in your line of work. But the policies and procedures are there to help, support, and protect Trudy as much as Juga. She's not less of a worker in that she doesn't have less rights, even though she's relieved. It's that moment in time. There is about fairness, equity. That's your legal requirement under Fair Work Australia, that you cannot discriminate against Trudy because she's part-time, because she's casual. Who has the ultimate responsibility for putting those resources in front of Trudy? First Access, the employer. and some of that handover. So when I jumped in tonight, Cheyenne had said, Vicky's going to be running your class on Tuesday night. So that's a handover. So if someone wasn't in class last week, it's like, what's she doing here? Where's our teacher? Where's Cheyenne? Not without having that information if you hadn't watched the class recording from last week. So it's about, can we do some of this prevention to save the vent? And I'm a believer also of, you know, vent to prevent. It's good to share your thoughts, your frustrations, but it's where do we do that? If that was done privately with the line manager, like, I'm really upset about this, I'm actually quite angry. It's like, look, let's talk about it, but bring it to your line manager. That's not a weakness, that's a strength in your team. If you've got a good culture of trust, every staff member should be able to go to their line manager. And that's what psychological safety is in the workplace. You can make mistakes, you're human. Is it appropriate? No, but will we do some additional training, education and awareness for the whole of staff? But to me, I'm identifying, how did that happen? Especially when it frames it as Trudy, normally a very good worker. But if this is Trudy's third or fourth notice, then I would need the evidence to take it to the next step. But I wouldn't be doing that without getting good advice, making sure that I was working legally and ethically. So you look at those 6 case studies and they look fairly simple on the surface, but know that you will end up in court for perception and whether there's been any damage or harm. In several states and territories, psychological safety now sits under the Workplace Health and Safety Act. So if Trudy felt that she was psychologically injured by how I handled the next step, if I didn't handle that professionally with fairness and equity to better understand what was happening for Trudy, then that could place us in a legal dilemma, and Trudy has rights. You as a worker also have the right to see it and report it. You wouldn't let a puddle on the floor. You can't walk past it without putting the wet floor sign and following your incident. You cannot walk past something like this and not report it either, other than, oh, that's just nothing personal here, Mel. That's just Trudy, how Trudy rolls, you know, she's always been like that. We can't throw shade over Trudy. What you can do is report, you know, I think there's a matter for your attention. You haven't got an opinion about it. State the facts. What I saw, what I heard, what they stated, and only those facts. That's what goes into an incident report. That is your legal and ethical responsibility. And you just thought it was about enduring power of attorney. I can tell you emotions run high when people pass away, or there's been a near-death experience, or it's high risk when we're triaging around suicide intervention prevention work, which is predominantly our target group, that 12 to 24 years of age, up to 34 Gen Y. They are the highest group where we're triaging all the time, risk assessing. What do I do with that information? I can't have an opinion around it. I rely on my policies and procedures. That is my legal and my ethical responsibility. Ethical in this case meaning duty of care. Okay, all right. I've worked you hard. I know that. Who'd like to have a 10-minute break? We shake off this one. Yeah. Who feels a little bit better prepared jumping into those 6 case studies? I've added a few extra layers. If you've completed it already, know that this discussion is for you to apply in the workplace. If you've already been signed off and satisfactory, don't worry about that. But those of you who are heading in there, if it's me marking, I usually will say, I'm looking for more. And what else? And I might still mark you as satisfactory, but I'll just say for future reference or a tip, consider this for your next time that you come across that, to give you some feedback which is specific and helpful for you as well. Okay, great. Let's take a 10-minute break. I've got just about 7:40. Let's come back at 10 to 8 and I'll put you to work again. Okay, great. I'm not taking a break. If you need a trainer, I'm right here. Otherwise, everybody take a 10-minute break and look after yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Great questions happening here. So I just want to do a debrief, a summary about we are exploring one of the 6 cases around where there was an enduring power of attorney, so the legal and the ethical framework around a story, a scenario, and how we're going to cope with it. So we work within the scope of my role. So if you're doing the incident report, the scope of your role is a support worker, and you are reporting an incident. In First Access, there is a policy, procedure, protocol, and a document on what to put in the incident, and only that. Anything else is opinion, not fact-based. May have good wording there, Rabbit, I like that. May have, because we're not accusing, we do not know anything. We only know what we know. So may have, it may breach the code of conduct. There was an existing directive in place. It appears Trudy was not aware of or may not have been aware of. That's all you're doing. And usually in an incident report, it isn't in First Access, but for us at work and every organisation you go in, it'll be a little bit different. Ours says, is there anything that could have prevented this from happening? And Rabbit, that'd be where. But in the First Access one for your assessments, it doesn't have that. It actually is just asking for what you saw, what you heard, what they stated. And then if an investigation happens, so they may come back and ask you, how have you found Trudy, and do all of that. Then there's room for you to put your opinion in there. But an incident report is a legal document, and it could be used to support or go against Trudy. And so therefore we cannot. And the people who are lodging the complaint have the right to have access to those legal documents. Even an email that you send is a legal document, and it can be subpoenaed. So don't put anything in a document that you're not prepared to speak to in court. Mel,
Yep.
can I circle to you?
Yeah. Hold on, sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. So just on this question, this is where I'm getting tripped up a little bit. I feel like sometimes the questions aren't specific in terms of what they're asking. So you're talking about an incident report in this particular situation, but nowhere in the question does it state that you're filling out an incident report. It does state, what would you tell your manager or supervisor about the situation? They're very different questions.
Yeah.
Like if
So
it stated, how would you fill out an incident report, I would answer that very, very differently to how I would answer how I would tell my manager or supervisor.
However, if you go over to First Access website and you look at the policies and procedures in there, will tell you exactly how you would report that to your line manager. What information does my line manager need? The line manager will say, well, you know what, Mel, I need you to put that into an incident report, or, okay, leave that with me. I'll pick that up. At this stage, it's only an inquiry, no incident report required. But you still need to know, what information do I tell my line manager? And can I make sure that I'm not implying or accusing anyone, still in the language? So your language must be safe as well. So
absolutely, but it's still, I don't know, for me, that's still two very different questions.
How, and the procedure is the what you do. So this is just around the policy. In First Access, it actually has a policy on communication.
Okay.
So always go to your policies and procedures, and what's the exact question it's asking of you in the assessment, Mel? Have you got that in front of you? Could you share that?
So that's part C, where it says write a short account of what you would tell your manager or supervisor about the situation. So to me, that is asking how you would go to your manager or supervisor and talk to them. And again, how you would talk and approach a situation is very different to how you would officially write a report. And I mean, I do this a lot in my job. and how I approach my manager, and what you're saying before, where Treaty could approach you at any stage and discuss these problems with you. It's very different to how you would fill out an official report. I just feel like if that's what they're asking, if they want you to respond to this question as if you're filling out a report, the question should then state that they want that sort of information. I don't know. I find it very different how you would, yes, you'd always
Absolutely.
respect
Yeah.
confidentiality and privacy, regardless of what way you're going, but it's
You're
very
still doing
different.
all of that. You're still looking after the policy,
Yeah.
procedure, privacy, confidentiality. However, who am I talking to and why? So it's my supervisor, my line manager.
Yeah.
What is my relationship with them? Purely professional.
Yeah.
I'm in a contract. What is my duty of care? I signed my policies and procedures when I first started working with the organisation. Before I got my first paycheck, and I signed off and I said I read them. So I always refer back to them. Always refer back to them at how we would do that. If there is an investigation, they may ask the line manager, so what exactly did Mel say? And your line manager can say, she just went off about Trudy. She just, she was upset. She was visibly shaking. It'll only be the facts. So even when you're reporting to your line manager, only answer the questions that you've been asked, but approach them and say, look, I'm not sure. I feel really uncomfortable, if that's your words, and I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling with something I overheard. I really felt that it went against our code of conduct. Can I discuss it with you?
Yeah, and that's how I think most people might approach that situation. But if we answered that question like that, would we then fail it because we're not answering what they
No.
actually want?
Because I'm looking for your intent. We have the model, we have the answers right beside us when we're marking your assessments, by the way, and it might be minimum the learner must have in their answers. And so there's a lot of wiggle room there, Mel.
Yeah.
So it's like, yep, I know where they're headed with it. Some people are very exact and take everything literally as an assessor. They're human. I might look at it and go, I know where you're coming from here. I've got it. But if it's very clear and the model answer, because it's a national framework and recognised all around Australia, your qualification, it has to have a minimum. And if it says report to the line manager what they saw, what they heard, and what was stated, that would be in there. It wouldn't be an opinion base that you go in there with. You could say, I'm actually fairly upset by it. I wasn't sure what to do other than I knew I had to come and report that up.
Okay.
And don't get drawn into any other conversation with anybody, because your line manager may not be following protocol either. So be really careful, because do you think that GP is going to turn around and slap First Access about this? 100%. Do you think that Sam may have some misguided grief and loss response around this and think maybe Zach wasn't looked after by this organisation? What the hell is going on here? So it could go very badly. Be very mindful, because whatever it is that you say, it's likely it's going to be part of an investigation. At the moment, you're at inquiry level only. Best advice I could ever give a worker is diarise everything. Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And leave out all of the names. Put initials, the date, because you say, I diarise everything. Let me refer back to my notes. The magistrate will love you. Matthew, good questions, Mel.
Just touching on what Mel was saying, and I somewhat feel the same way. With some of the assessments, the way that the question is written can be interpreted in a few different ways. And I suppose we're just scared that we've interpreted it incorrectly and we're going to give the incorrect answer, even though there is a minimum, as you say, and that's comforting to know that there is a minimum requirements with a bit of wiggle room. If you can see that we still understand what we're talking about and we're heading in the right direction, but being that we're interpreting a different way to what it's asking, it's hard to give a solid sort of one-track answer. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean, and thank you for being so upfront about that, because that is your experience. I think the clue is always in the question. If it goes, name which article under the Geneva Rights of a Child, that's very specific. It's asking for.
Yes.
But when it's
Yep.
like this, in your own words, then it can be either or. And
Yes,
you
okay.
take some, I hope you could take some comfort in that, Matthew,
Definitely.
that it's in
Definitely.
your own words.
Yes. Yep.
That we're looking for. It's up to us as the assessor to look at that. So if Cheyenne was marking, we mark very similar. Our knowledge and our background and things like that is also similar, though he's like Rabbit and has been in correctional. I'm the one who goes to court to keep them out of correctional centres.
Oh God.
That's the other. I'm
The
there.
other end of the spectrum.
Well, I walk beside them, even if the consequences are they are going to go and be incarcerated. As a youth worker, that is your role.
Yes.
So do I work with offenders? Yes.
Yep. Okay. No, that is comforting. Thank you.
Do I like that work? Yes, I do. Because behind that is a story. And even if they're in their 20s and should know better and yada, 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 it's the 14-year-old trauma impacted young person that was raped at the age of 7 that is making the decisions. So they have to behave themselves. If they don't follow the guidelines, then they need to be removed from society who may be harm to self and others. So I don't try and interfere with the lesson or the courts. I try and make that learning experience a one-time only incarceration for that young person, where they have an understanding around what they did and what they need to do differently to move from there. But there's if you email me, I just want to let you know, if you email me afterwards as your trainer, I do this with all my other classes. Some of you may already have that. I do assist some. .au. That is my email address. So just viki@haderinstitute.edu.au. If you just say, hey, Vicky, do you have those resources? Please email me and I'll send them to you. One is not a HADA resource. Actually, both are not HADA resources, but we all have an invisible bag of tricks and we fill it up as we go along. You'll get it from each other. Someone will say something. Mel might go, I work in the schools and we do it like this. It's like, oh, I like that. I want to try that. I want to add that to my toolkit, whether you're a worker yet or not. But I have a resource called the Accidental Counsellor, which I've been fairly instrumental in rolling that out to non-qualified people, so people who work behind the bar, hairdressers, people in construction, the MATES program. The Accidental Counsellor is an excellent workbook. It'll give you some really good foundational skills in counselling without giving advice. And the other is a list of links that I did a 2-day trauma-informed practice workshop. And there was a young guy who was set up a post-prison program. He's now studying law. His father was incarcerated since he was a child for life, and he was released. He lives with his father now, but he is now studying law, and he spoke at that. It's also part of the Compassion Project, which is a pilot program in New Zealand, but it's the one in America. And they've launched it in the North Island in New Zealand, and we're in discussions now. So the other organisation I work for outside of HADA, we have the Literacy and Numeracy program in every prison in Queensland. So just the kids who fell through the cracks at school. Most of the prisoners incarcerated have a lot of shame around they cannot read and write. So we go back in and we do some of that work as well. So, and it isn't that they're going to wear the T-shirt and say, I cannot read and write. It'll be acted out in a behaviour, and we may miss that and treat the behaviour rather than what is the underlying root cause. And that's your work as a youth worker, 100%. You are here as a youth worker. Think of those two words. Okay. Unconditional positive regard, compassionate inquiry. What happened to you? That is your work, your core work as a youth worker. Rabbit.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, we actually walk beside them in jail as well, and there's a lot of good programs in jail, but something that people don't realise is that most young kids that'll end up incarcerated, and when I say most, I'm talking in the high 90%, basically have never had a father figure, never had someone that they can go and talk to when they've got a problem or whatever. And as such, they go and talk to their mates or the guy that they know on the corner that's doing things that probably shouldn't be doing and that. So, reflecting upon that, they're not in a really good batting situation anyway. Just one question is first access. You referred to a communication policy in the first access. Are you able to tell me which of the policies? Because I've got most of them printed out.
If you go into as soon as you log in and go to search, just put in communication in your search word, and it'll give you things like, here's the email template. Here's the...
Yeah, can you give me the reference number to that document?
I haven't got it at the top of my head, but could you email me and I will go and do a deep dive for you and send you...
Look, I've printed most of them out, but my problem is that I've gone through them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through them and I can't really find one that impacts upon this scenario.
Yeah, go under incident.
Yeah, but that's for serious incidents.
No,
there's not.
There's others. There's quite a few incidents, and some of the incidents is report to my line manager within 12 hours. Like what Mel said, there is no incident report filled in. But is that a reportable incident? 100%. It is your duty to report that to your line manager. Go and have a look at reportable matters. Go and look at an incident, whether you fill in a template or not. In this one, we have not asked you to fill in a template, but we expect that you will go, well, what am I supposed to do? We've said go and report to the line manager. What do I tell them? And will they...
Injury, trauma and illness policy and procedure?
There's about 5. Rabbit, could you email me afterwards and let's have that discussion? Know that as your trainer while I'm here in this space, all you've got to do is send me an email and say, hey, Vicky, for CHCLEG001, T2 of 4, question 11, I've got no clue. That will prompt me to give you a guide on what they're kind of looking for. I'll spit you out a paper, a document, send it as an attachment and steer you in that direction if you're not sure. But you get 3 attempts and there is no penalty to have more. At the 3rd attempt, if the feedback we've given you hasn't got traction with you yet, then I will open up more. So I'm the person who opens up 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I can give you 20 goes at it. But at the 3rd attempt, that says we are missing something, not you. However, we're giving you feedback, we need to explain that or clarify. Most of the time, I'll just pick up the phone and say, hey, can I talk to you about this? Or I'll send you an email with a guide and I'll just say, I can see you're stuck on this one. I've opened up a couple more attempts. Think about, and then I'll guide you in that direction that's missing.
I'll be
if our feedback isn't clear enough for you, then that is for us. Please tell us. We want your feedback. If ours isn't good enough, just say, I need feedback that's really specific. I don't get it. That's not only on you, that's on us. We're here to coach, support you, and guide you with your knowledge, questions, and your resources. This isn't you jump in and don't know it and it's all on you. That's the exact opposite to why you're studying. If you knew it already, you would have the qualification. So please don't be hard on yourself in that space. Just go, I don't know what it is. It's not getting through. I'm stuck on this one. And that's okay, because that's all you're reporting. Okay. All right. So we have unpacked two. I've left you my email address here, vickyhayterinstitute.edu.au. Rabbit made some really good points, as did Mel, around different roles, different responses. That will be the service model that you work to. So you have, in our service model, say for instance at Kirby House, our accommodation, we have harm minimisation. That's the model. At the Salvation Army Youth Refuge down the road, they have a zero tolerance. That is, our model is, we understand that we have people who are addicts, who may be coming off crack and moving on to weed. We see that as that young person at their full potential. Our service model requires that they must be engaged with an AOD service provider. So we have our own service model, which is harm minimisation. But with the Salvation Army, at the Youth Refuge, it's government funded. Ours is not funded. We do not receive 1 cent in government funding at all. We run it as a self-funded model, social venture. Every young person that comes there, the only requirement is that they must study, not gaming, not lap dancing, must study something that will break that pattern of financial hardship for them. Even if they're working, they must still learn, and it's a safe place to do that. That's the requirement that we have in our accommodation as well. So it could be literacy, numeracy, it could be whatever. Mostly though, we deliver training which will help them become youth workers because they have a lived experience, or they'll do business and set up a little micro business so that they can have that entrepreneurial feel legally, make some money rather than unlawfully, the other creative way that they thought would be able to get them out of the hole that they're in. So that's our service model. So it depends on what the constraint is. It is, Katie, thank you. And I love it. It's legacy work for me because Kirby House is named after a young guy that didn't make it. And in his name, that's the work that we do. So 4 days before I was about to leave and retire, they said, what would it take to keep you? And I said, one house, one model, called this. And 5 years later, we started with 7-bedroom, 3-bathroom. We are now in an 11-bedroom, 9-bathroom, and we've just opened up an academy. And we will only take the young people that no one else will take. So we don't want the easy ones. We want the ones that other people may erase. So because we understand them and we see them. So for every young person, their driver is who am I and where do I fit in? So yeah, it's good work. And we have a lead tenant model. I do not live there. We have no staff living on site. The young people are the lead tenants themselves. So it works because they are all have buy-in on it doing well. What do they get out of it? They get a positive rental history. They sign a lease. 5 real estates in town will take a reference from us. But if they haven't deserved it and earned it, they don't get it either. We don't hug them when they do the wrong thing. It's like, there's the line, step over. Do I evict people? Yes. Have I taken them back? 100% I have. Who advocates for them most strongly? The other tenants. So it's the best of everything over 27 years, and it works. And we lead that space in that. But it's a model that we know works, and we know that we can turn it around as well. So that's our core business in housing, homelessness, mental health, AOD, all of the things and court that sit around working with youth. Rabbit's perspective, like Cheyenne's, is on the other side. It is great and heartening for me to know that there's good people like Cheyenne and Rabbit who do work on that side, because no matter how many times that you work with someone, their self-harm, their weapon of choice, going back into institutions and into the correctional centre still needs to be done well. I know that Cheyenne looks after people at intake and also when they're about to leave again. So how we respond in that moment of time is very important. And there's room for that. So if someone cannot navigate independently outside in the community in a safe manner, safe to self and others, then they need to be somewhere where they can revisit and get that role modelling again that Rabbit was speaking about. And good workers help them do that regardless of whether they're in detention or not. So for some of them, they return to incarceration because there is a sense of connection and family, and they will offend again because it had structure and something that they could count on. Whereas if they don't change their lives, or if they haven't got the resources and the means to do that, then they will just go back to the same environment and the same decision making. So is prison and correctional centre for rehabilitation? Mostly not. It's about the removal. There are good programs, but you're not always eligible for those programs unless you've been incarcerated for a certain period of time. So that's work to do, and you definitely need to be made of a particular type of person to do that. But there are stakeholders, and I have to get on well with them because that's the step up and step down. So we'll get a call before they leave. Have you got accommodation? Yep, we'll hold your room if you're in for 6 weeks. If you've had that brain fart, then we'll work on that while you're in there and when you get out. But they know what those consequences are. But we expect to break that pattern of social housing. So nobody goes into social housing when they leave our program. They all go into the open rental market. And we know that a job and education will break that pattern to get rid of Centrelink off their back. Make enough money where you don't actually need Centrelink and stop calling it payday, because that's not pay. That's support, financial assistance until you can do it independently. So I have strong views about that, that if we treat people like that's as good as it can get, that's all they'll ever think and want for themselves as well. Okay, but there's different ways, different workers, different models, different programs. Wherever you are definitely, you've had an amazing trainer in this space with Cheyenne. I know that. And I'm really, really glad that we can still keep him on the team, but look after him for whatever he needs for that balance. And losing a trainer that was doing 3 nights to 1 night, because that night was dictated by external things, not like I'll pick which class I'm doing. That really, I'm really, really happy that he's there. And you will see him across your assessment marking more. Because what he can do without coming into classes, do more marking for you. So you'll see him in that space. He'll definitely recognise you guys, having been in his class as well. So you'll still have connection with him that way. Okay, so any questions about task 2? Is there a mystery there? I get it. Who's feeling like I've got a better understanding about legal and ethical framework now? Good, thanks, Katie. Who's stuck? And this is the time to share that. Who's got I need it unpacked a little bit more? Hugh, how are you going?
Yeah, good. I feel like it was a really valuable session, and yeah, definitely have more of an understanding for sure. Yeah, so
Right.
I feel pretty ready to tackle the.
Jump into those 6. The framework is the same. The only thing that's different with those 6 is a different story. Same with your role plays. When we mark a role play, it never says, what did they do about that client? It always says, I observed the learner use open-ended questions. I observed the learner use intentional interviewing skills. I observed the learner work respectfully in that space. It's actually got nothing to do with the story. We can tell if you prepared and planned for that, but don't get caught up on the story about, it was a really good point that Matthew raised about, well, I've got it right or wrong. If your intention is in there, I am just going to ask myself, would I talk to that person and tell them what's happening for me? That's the only thing that matters in that space. And if you go, you know what, they've given me 10 minutes here and I'm supposed to engage with them and get all of that stuff, I'll give you a tip how to get around it. If you don't think 10 minutes is enough, if you take 20 minutes, you will have it sent back because it clearly says 10 minutes. If it's 12, just nudged it, all good. If it's 4, it's coming back. Okay, but if it says that it's 10 minutes, here's what you can do. You can go, oh, hi, my name's Vicky, and this is my role play for CHCLEG001 task 3. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working with the client and I'll give them the scenario, yada, yada. None of that counts. Then jump in and just say, I've got someone here who's playing the client with me, and I need you both on the screen. If it's with one other person, you must both be on the screen at all times. So when you're doing a Zoom, if you do it by Zoom, then just record to your own device, not in the cloud, which is why when you get your classes back, you only see the person that's talking jumps out. Okay. If I was recording to my own device, you would all be on the screen at all times. So just know that when you're in there, and you do not have to. Kirsten, do you mind if I speak about your role play? It's the most recent I marked, that's all. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah.
You know I gave you good feedback because it was a good role play. So I'm not picking on Kirsten, everyone. So Kirsten had her client and they were side by side on the screen at all times. To me, that's huge because when the other person was talking, she asked all her open-ended questions, did all that, very strength-based. I like that. Some positive reinforcement, some paraphrasing, all of that was in there. But it was the non-verbal language that I was looking for as well. So by having both on the screen, I could look at, what does Kirsten do when she's listening, active listening? Did she have eye contact, or was she furiously writing away doing her grocery list because Woolworths are going to do the delivery by 3 o'clock today if she doesn't get it in? I know if someone's engaged and connected in that space. The vibe comes through a recording for sure. And 100% when you're working with the client, they know if you're interested and engaged with them. That's what I want. That's what I'm assessing on. If straight away I go, this is authentic, I've got it. What will I not like? And I'm sorry if I am that person who marked you and sent it back. And I am efficient in my wording. It would be like, oh yes, and now I'm feeling like that's really unfair and I don't know what to do and I'm homeless. If you read from a script, I'm going to send it back. If your person who plays the client reads from a script, I'm not measuring you. I can't get what you're really going to be like as a worker. So I've heard some assessors say, what if the other person is off camera? As long as you both come on together at that time and turn sideways as if they are just there. I'll take the back of that person, by the way, because I'm not assessing them. I'm assessing you. So that works also, but they could have their notes in front of them if they feel they need that to prompt. You also can have your notes because as a worker, you often have your case notes there. It's like, I just want to circle back. So if it says your assessor will be looking for, and we usually give you 5, 6, 7 or 8 things, write those down and circle back. If you go, look, you mentioned earlier, I wanted to just come back to that. Look, another thing that I wanted to cover while we're here together today, and we can spend more time on it next time, just raise it. I'll be happy with that, because it means that you're going to work with them again. Make sure that you do your privacy and confidentiality in the beginning. Even if you saw that client every week for 10 years, you must say that, because you have no consent without it. You cannot say, oh yeah, they gave me that, I did that once. No, it's the same as Duca. What if that directive was null and void? What if that directive where the ex had that enduring power of attorney, what if that had expired? And there was a note there afterwards where he said, I don't want her anywhere near me. And we did not work with that. That'd be where Trudy could get stuck. Trudy may have been privy to that conversation and wondering, why is all of this happening? That could be what triggered Trudy. We don't know, and we don't need to know to do our job. Kirsten.
Just, I should know by now because I've done so many, but with the role plays, when talking about privacy and confidentiality to start with, so I did one today actually that was, I can't remember the unit, I'm sorry, but it was a client who was in the front reception getting quite angry and upset and aggressive and pacing back and forth. So in that instance, would my first priority be calming them down and then
de-escalate? You may not be able to. You may not be able to calm them down. Kudos to you if you can, but who's in control of whether they calm down or not?
Them.
So don't take responsibility for things outside of your control. Follow your protocol, which is de-escalate. Make sure that the safety, it's an incident in action. So it's like, what must I do? Am I going to say, look, you've got the right, to privacy? No, this is a different situation going on. This de-escalate safety. You must be safe. Your peers must be safe. Put some distance between yourself unless you feel experienced. Now, this comes to the scope of your role. If you are a senior worker and the scope of your role, but if you're level entry, so you can answer that. And here's where Matthew was going. Is it right or wrong? You can frame that and just say, as a level entry worker, I do not have the confidence to do that. I would ensure my safety. We have a due rest button. I'd make sure that administration, the admin worker was there, that I would support them. I would put some distance between myself and the incident emerging, and I would bring in a more experienced staff member to manage. That would be your protocol. How you approach that is up to you. If you feel, I want to give this a go, I want to de-escalate. It's like, I can see you're really upset right now. Would you come to another area? How about we go outside in the Zen garden? Now, here's my gift to you. In role play land, you have magic. You have every single thing you want right there at your fingertips. You could have, Barry, our security, who's standing at the door. Invent them, just because it doesn't say it in the scenario. What do you want? Do you want a Barry who's your bouncer, who everybody loves, like a big 6'7" Maori? I'd have a Barry up my sleeve. So it's like, hey, Barry, can you just come over with us outside? Grab a couple of cans of Coke and a bottle of water, could you? And we're going to head outside in the Zen garden. Come on, buddy, let's head out. Now, I would, because I'd feel comfortable once I knew there wasn't a weapon, but a stapler can be a weapon. Anything, a pen can be a weapon, but you've got to work within the scope of your role. So you frame it and say, look, I'm a level entry worker. I would follow protocol and ask for someone more experienced. But the first thing that I would do would be to risk assess, and I will put some distance between myself and them. I would pass that because you would be knowing what you could and could not do, but did you follow protocol? And is that client who's visibly distressed, upset, and needing support, you're not abandoning them. You're making sure that they're okay until someone or an extra person is with you, Kirsten, sorry.
Yeah, that's all
right. Okay. Yeah, so frame it the way, this is what I would do. Add the extra in there. I can tell you this one is marked on making sure that you put some barriers between yourself and that person, some safety. Now, you may, in fight or flight, if someone is coming after you, you may or may not know what your survival response is. Mine is fight. I move towards it, and that's happened to me often enough where I go, oh, okay. And that is not a conscious decision. That is just something that's hardwired inbuilt with me. Some people flight, they may be frozen where they are, like freeze, and they may internalize that, but they may not be able to say or do anything. Sometimes in an incident, there is another thing that can happen, an unexpected outcome. That's why we have duress and panic buttons, and we don't put people working in outside of the scope of their role. No manager would expect you to work in an area that you feel that you did not have the skills to do. But if you apply first aid, the very first thing they do is make sure that you are safe, that everybody around you is safe. Think about, Dr. ABC, danger, just go into first aid. First responder mode is usually your foundation for something like that. The same with mental health first aid, same type of response. So you need to be safe. Some people have higher level skills, they've been there longer, or they've got more exposure to that, and that is in the scope of their role. But if it's not in yours, then in role play land, Barry's right there. Hey, Barry, could you grab a couple of drinks? And we're going to head out to the Zen garden there. Because outdoors, you're moving them away from the environment where it could be triggering for your peers and for others. But I wouldn't be going anywhere without Barry if you are brand new. Now, would I? Yes. Do I make sure I know where the knife is? 100%. Like I have all of that safety stuff in place as well. The thing is, calm and de-escalate. If you meet them where they are, it will escalate. So you have to be calm as well. You're in control of that. So if they're yelling, screaming, we have a softer, quieter voice. I hear you, mate. Yeah, I get it. Okay, we ask permission? Could we? Would it be okay if? Get their consent. Someone feels their power has been taken away. Hand it back to them straight away in a healthy way. Okay. Does that answer what you're looking for, Kirsten?
Definitely. Yeah. I asked my client today if we could go somewhere quiet, and she said no twice. And I said, oh no, what do I do now? But I dealt with it. So
what did you do? What did you do?
Well, I de-escalated. I tried to calm her down. We did some breathing techniques, and then we did the grounding techniques, like the 5 senses: touch, feel, taste, all of that. Got her to point those things out to a point where she was calmed down and willing to talk to me. And then after we spoke for a little bit, I asked again, and then she was willing to move somewhere quieter after a little while of talking.
Yeah, look, I know that your skills is not real. I know that some people jump into role plays and go, I just feel weird about this. The more you do, the better you get. It is a very unnatural thing to do that. The best I can say to you is just forget it's there. If you've got someone to do these with you, then go ahead and do it. But it is a very important part of your qualification. So you don't have to do role plays. You'll get a statement of attainment. You won't get a certificate. All your choice, 100% your choice, but you will not complete. You won't get the qualification, and it's our job to help you feel as comfortable as we can. I know that if I mark you when you first start, I know your role play when you're midway through is going to be completely different. I'm not going to be really, really tough on someone unless it's got the minimum must-haves. Then I will give you that feedback. But you deserve to earn this qualification and be the best possible youth worker that you can be when you leave your qualifications with HADA. And yeah, we need great workers. So I'm only in this space to make sure I'm sending out good workers. as well. So you guys here in this room offer most of the learning and the knowledge. I just let you know how that's going to be applied on a day-to-day basis as a worker, what works, what doesn't, some ideas, things you can pick up. You can go, that's not for me. I couldn't do it like that. You don't have to. Absolutely find your own style. Cheyenne would 100% be a different worker. He's scary. I'm not. But can I be? Yes. But it's my last resort. I can usually get them there because I work off a different kind of a model, my service program. Cheyenne works in a different area, very, very black and white. What can be done, what cannot be done. There's nothing ambiguous in that space, right or wrong. The only thing, like Rabbit said, was the culture as a team leader or a manager working and helping people into that role. But I can tell you there's about 10 managers above who are saying it looks like this, and it's not up for discussion. When you go into the non-government area, it comes from the bottom up. The workers usually decide. We work inside the guideline, but anything inside that guideline, you be you. You step out of that guideline, I'm like a bulldog. You can't, because it leaves you unsafe, your clients unsafe, the organization's reputation. The community love nothing more than to throw shade over young people and judge them. They love it. I'm living in a state that wants to put 400 ankle bracelets on young people at $55,000 a year to monitor them. And like, you've got to talk to these young people and say, well, at least now you've got an alibi. So now they're going to like get street cred out of it. They're going to decorate them. Like, they're ready. Preparation, planning, and prevention to see that as they're not going to be tapped for something that they usually get tapped for, and they were nowhere near that. So we have to take it and go, well, you can't change it. This is how it is. If you want it off, it's got to look like this. How much do you want that off? And they're the natural consequences for the choices that we make. Which bits are you in control of? But that takes time. It's not instant, and no way in the world, when you do a role play, does someone come in and are they being Kirsten, I'd like to see your person, if they're your regular person that does the role plays with you, I'd like you to ask them to accept a challenge and not be as cooperative, just to hone your skills. You've got very polite clients. So
Okay.
just say, just one thing, just say, push back a little, get me flexing that muscle a little more. Don't treat your role plays like, oh, I just want to get them out of the way, tick, tick. You're good enough. I've watched your work. You're good enough now to get them to push back a little and test yourself. Don't make it about what I see. Make it about what you want to bring out in yourself. Okay, just set yourself a little challenge. You can always re-record it if you go, settle down. Just not that. Just like, just like not straight away, or be really flat and not say anything. And that is okay, because it's driven by the client, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't think for a moment that client's going to walk in and tell you their life story, or that they even have to. They're checking you out if they want to work with you, and that may take time. And they don't have to. They could be mandated by the courts to be there. If this says, well, I'm here, don't want to be here, I'm not going to tell you anything, yours are all the same, and every other colourful adjective that they want to say to you. So just say, not a problem. I'm definitely going to write down that you turned up, and thank you for that. That's great. But I'm also going to write that you did not engage in the program. But this is your space. We can sit here for the next 20 minutes and say nothing. I'm cool with that. But I have, as a neurodivergent, I have a lot of things around me. So in my clinic, I have fidgets and sand trays, and I have big 1.2 meter colouring in piece of art on the wall, and crayons and stuff like that. So there's things to do in there. I just like build a relationship of trust, engagement. The minimum I would want would be respect. And I know I've got to earn that from the client, not the other way around. So please and thank you. Trust. trust you'll only get that if you are consistent in your pattern of behavior that you have with your client. Okay, I haven't given you enough breaks. I'm going, please wrap up for the night. I will finish my recording and circle back to that and wrap that up. And I have another recording for you around the theory side of this. Okay, I wanted to wrap up our discussion. See all my tabs open there. So just in summary, tonight we had our live class, and that's going to form one part of the recording that comes out to you. The other side of it, though, is we went through just one case study. We did JUCA, and at the very beginning here, it asks you for the 6 case studies. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And it wants you to break down a different story, different scenario. However, each of them will have legal and ethical framework around it. It will relate to it, wants you to have some reflection on it. I'll take you over to the marking guide for this as well. Just put some insight over there. What are we actually looking for? In the overview, your instructions, it says, it asks you to simulate a community service facility called First Access. Make sure that in your background that you have set the scene. So each of these, they're happening. I'll demonstrate that for you right now while we're here. One that I mostly use for role plays. Okay, so when it says in a simulated workplace environment, this is my clinic. So what we have is I have a window of the well-ventilated room. I have a couple of chairs for myself and my client. I have an exit door. There's amenities just out. And as you come in, there's some brochures and things like that. There's ambient water sitting there for people to help themselves and feel comfortable. I've got some music. It does look very much like my own clinic. I like a fairly chilled zone, and out the window is a garden. Yeah, so I have a coffee table in front of us. I have my notes, pen and paper, which I'm going to be just jotting down some client information. And I might, when I go to work, I wear my ID. So with that, I might start my role play off. If I was the learner, I would just say, hi, my name is Vicky Hannah. Here is my ID. If you're not comfortable showing your ID, a photo ID, just state your HADA student ID number, XYZ111. And what I'm doing is the role play for CHCLEG001 task 3. And I have someone who's going to play the client for me, and I'll introduce you to them in a moment. And then I will just give a summary about this scenario is about myself as a worker, and I'm taking on the name of this. If it says Estelle and you don't identify with the name Estelle, just say it's about Estelle in the beginning, but I'm going to refer to my own name. Make sure that when you're on the screen that you have your full name that you're enrolled in with HADA, rather than your pet name or your family name or even your first name. Because sometimes when we open up a recording, we can't find that exact name. So it also forms part of your ID as well. But just know that we need to see you in a simulated workplace environment. Now, if that is hard for you to do, a blank wall is perfectly fine. Try not to have family photos in the background. So you wouldn't have that if you were in the workplace. You would be wanting to protect the privacy and confidentiality around it. I've just blurred my background, so you have capacity to do that. And you'll find that in the bottom of your screen if you're using Zoom. So you can use Zoom. It's free. You get 40 minutes free. And in that space, sorry, let me just find my clinic again. Great. And I'll drop us back in. So it's a virtual setting, which means simulated. But if it's in a kitchen and you're at home and you're doing your role play there, but the scenario says that it was actually happening in a consult room, it's not there. And I'm probably going to say, really great start. I need another part 2, a 5-minute recording of you doing the intro, and just show me that you know what a simulated workplace environment. I don't want you to do it again at all. But you must have your ID. Why? Because when you do your written work, you sign off that it is yours, and then you submit. So when it's your role play, because it might be marked by someone who's never met you, and it's a different assessor, it could be your cousin Mario, who is a budding amateur theatre buff, and they'll say, don't worry about it, Luigi, I will do all your role plays for you, and we'll just whack that name up. So we have to have integrity and rigor over this space. It is your work, so it's important. But if you feel uncomfortable at all, then I want you to just position yourself and don't look directly in the camera. Now, when you're doing public speaking, it's exactly the same. Some people will even say, just look just above someone's head. So just have something close by. I have my phone mounted, or I'll have 2, depending on how busy I am. So just in front of the camera. So just position something there, or a sticker just on the corner of your screen, and just look towards there as if your client is there. Now, we have to have you on the screen at all times. It's you that we're assessing, where it's your micro skills, your non-verbals, your energy that you take into that space, that safe, empathetic environment that you're creating, regardless of the story. And what it is that we're marking on. Yes, you do have to read it, and you do have to prepare for that. And we've had some great questions come out of tonight, not just this one, but also in another unit where access to some clients can be really challenging. Please make sure that you reach out to your learner support officers, or ask your learner support officers to get some help with one of your units, and they will send it back to the trainers. Otherwise, you know, if I'm your trainer in class, you can email me. I'll do that for you, and happy to, because your questions are actually ones that come up regularly. So please don't feel uncomfortable that you're asking a question, because you're representing what others are looking for as well. And know that you're not alone. You know, everything is easy when we know how, but this is a practice area, and role plays are your practitioner skills. So as a practitioner in the allied health space, when you're working with young people in a non-clinical way, know that the more you do these, the better you get. So just make yourself comfortable. Don't look directly into the camera. It'll feel odd. If you are reading off a script, it will come through. Practice it so that you've got your key points, and have like, well, there's 7 stepping off things that I must do. Make sure that you start them with open-ended questions. Who, what, how, when, where, and why. Begin every role play. Look, before we start, I just want to let you know that everything you say here is private and confidential, that I do not disclose anything that we say here at all. I'm bound by that. If ever you felt I breached that, you would have the right to make a complaint about that. So absolutely nothing about you without you is the value space. It's also my legal and my ethical requirement to be your worker. The only time that I would share something is if I had concern for you or the safety of others, or if someone was threatening you, I would need to ask my line manager what I would be doing or what I could do, so that we had the right supports around you. And then is the second part to this. Would that be okay? Or do you understand? and then wait, because without the answer to that question, you don't know if you've got consent or not. Very important to make sure that you do that. Don't rush it. Say it in a way, because start there. It's not a box to tick. It's actually about whether you have consent to go forward. And if they go, well, look, I'm not sure. But in that moment in time, your client can then decide how much they tell you today. They may not be there yet. Don't assume that because someone's walked in the door that they feel connected to us. That may take them time. There could be a lot of anxiety in that space for them, especially in scenarios for it to be authentic. You know, some of these are really complex situations: mental health, coexisting needs, housing and homelessness, substance misuse, domestic family violence. That's not a cheery conversation. If your client is, you know, like just yes or no, if you've got closed-ended questions, it's very hard for you as well to get that conversation going. A good role play is if they talk 60% of the time and you talk 40. I want to encourage you to look for a TEDx talk, which is Michael Bungay. It's hyphenated, I can't remember the last one, but his other name, his full name, sorry, Michael. And it's called Taming My Advice Monster. That is a great TEDx talk to have a look at. I encourage you to do that one. I gave you an acronym tonight. Wait, why am I talking? Why am I talking? We need to get the expert here to be talking about them. The only way to get them to open up, and the expert is your client, is rather than rush with solutions and advice, just go, that sounds really hard. And be respectful and engaged in that. If you don't get through everything, I've already let you know what we mark you on. And it's rarely about the client's story. You get the opportunity to put that knowledge into the supporting documents. But the role play is, did this learner simulate a scenario and engage with the client similar to sector standards? What are you going to be like as a worker? You will do exactly that process. The only thing that changes is the client's story. So you will always have that unconditional regard, the body language, the pauses, the empathy, the compassionate inquiry. Tell me a little bit more about that. What was that like for you? Open-ended question. There are times where we want yes, no, like the consent, that's yes or no, doing a referral. There are some really great services out there. Would it interest you if I could help you get connected to a bulk billing GP? We've got one that will take our referrals without a long wait list. You would? Okay, great. Okay, to do that, I'll just get your consent and permission so I can send that referral over, because I can't do that without you. That's part of my privacy and confidentiality. And that the referral is only for the duration and what I've got written in there. It is not a document where I can just go ahead and do anything. Everything that I do, we will work in this space collaborative together. So I'm establishing a relationship of making sure that person knows that I'm respectful. I have unconditional regard. And even if they make decisions that I would not necessarily want them to make for themselves, I know that that's their dignity of risk. My duty of care is to let them know what responsibility I have, and then also the natural consequences of making some of those choices, and that they're informed. And so I might say, it sounds like you're at a real crossroads. Yeah, so like you could go, let's say we went left and you made that decision, and you guide them what that might look like. What else do you think might come up for us if we went that way? Okay, yeah. All right, let's come back and have a look. maybe what would it be like if we went this other way, if you made that decision? And maybe there's even another path we could take, but we've not yet explored. So let's sit with that. Is this a decision that you have to make sort of fairly soon? It isn't? Okay, all right. Could we pick this up next time? Or would you like me to give you a call in between our next booking? Or if you feel there's a sense of urgency, then ring the office. If I can speak to you earlier, then I will. Otherwise, let's pick this up again next week when we catch up. How does that sound? And then summarize it. Look, we've covered a lot today. I feel like we've got some options. We've got some extra supports around you. There's some things that you're waiting for me to do, and I'll do those. And then there's some things that you're going to do. And then we'll both be able to share that when we come back together again next week and see how we went. But if you need anything in the meantime, and then just contact the office and leave a message for me. Okay, great. That's it, done. That's the beginning, the middle, and the end of a role play. And there's no story. I gave you no scenario, but that is your practitioner skills that we're looking for. So yes, it can be done in a kitchen. If you say, I'm actually doing this as a residential home visit. So you'll see that we're located inside the client's house. Explain it, simulate it, give me a reason why I'm looking at your kitchen sink. Okay. If you're in bed eating cookies, or the client is, just say they're homebound, give me a reason. But when you do a role play, simulated workplace environment, turn up for work, dress for work. Your dress code matters. And we only have pass or fail, satisfactory or unsatisfactory, but my feedback will be deeper than that. Now, I'm not an assessor that will go, well done, well done, well done, well done, because I'm not going to do that to you. What I am going to do is I'll give you feedback if there's something missing and guide you, and I'll try and help you as much as I can. But if it's straight up and you have not done some of the things that it requires of a role play, the intro, the setting, dress professionally in that timeline or close to, and we've got lots of role play resources, I'll say, I don't want you to do it again, but you will need to do a part 2 to fill the gap. I'll give you that opportunity. Some learners will go, no, it's good, I get it. Let me just do another one completely. I want to get that right. I want to feel comfortable and make it smooth. I will try and help you get through, but know that I'm expecting that to look different the next time. But for this time, I could take a part 2 as well. It says it in your instructions at the bottom. If you have to submit again, it's very clear on what I can and cannot do. I cannot let it go through if it has not met the benchmark for an Australian quality recognised nationally qualification, and every unit and every task must fall within that framework. Okay, so that's our practitioner skills. We've had some great rich discussion about this unit, which was CHCLEG001. We spoke about task 2. We're in week 2. Next week, we're coming back with week 3. And week 3 will be about task 3, the role play. If someone's ready and says, I'm ready to do the role play, I'll jump in, great. If not, we'll do a mock role play and I'll give you feedback collectively. If it does not require an assessor, here in class is how you connect with your peers. Stakeholder networking. Networking would have to be one of the most valuable tools I have as a worker. I cannot possibly be everywhere, do everything for my clients, nor should I. It would be an unhealthy balance of power with my client if they think I am the only one that can help them. You need to practice your networking. You network by connecting with your peers. We've got Discord. And that's like jump in and say, hey, I'm doing this unit. And I've seen some people just jump in and say, hey, would anyone be available? It says that I need another person. If it says that you need 3 people, or there's 3 people in a role play, you must have 3 people. You cannot have one person play 3 different roles. Cannot accept it unless a prior arrangement has been made and you've got that in writing, we can do it, but it's a reasonable adjustment. And that's not every time. We expect you to build on your strengths in this space so that you are getting peers to come in and act as the client, and you're reaching out to people. In Discord is your qualification under youth work. Anyone that's also looking for that. Now, I've teach 2 other classes, Diploma of Youth Work and Diploma of Community Services. And I've actually encouraged my learners not just do their own role plays, but to go in and volunteer and do role plays and be the client for other people. Because when you're sitting in the chair, it strengthens your own experience to know what you've got to do as a worker for someone to pull you out of that space. We talk about empathy. It's like being in someone else's shoes. Sit in that chair and be the client for somebody. That will give you a lens over your client's experience more than anything I could ever teach you in a classroom. Put yourself in their place. And by doing that, offer to volunteer. Even if you've done the unit, say, I've done that. I would love to be the client for you. Step in and work in that capacity of working with your peers. You will have a greater confidence over your skills so that when you go to work placement, you will be interviewed. People are checking you out. We've got a spot. We'd love for you to apply for it. If that's your aim, is to be working in the sector or to be promoted in the sector or to be given other opportunities to lead a program, build your confidence, your knowledge and your skills. Don't just see this as doing your assessments and just getting through them. Make it a rich experience and learn from your peers in this class. You will learn more from each other, I mean it, than you ever will from me. I'll just give you one perspective as a worker and someone who is a trainer and who works in the sector with the target group that you're studying for. However, other people in your class will bring something more to you in this space. And you might go, I like that bit that Becky does, but not that. I'll leave that. I'll pick this up, and you'll put that in your invisible bag of tricks that you are going to build throughout your whole career, not just while you're studying with us. So say yes to opportunities that you're uncomfortable in, and be comfortable being uncomfortable as well. So I will wrap up this part of the section. This is going to be part 2, our practitioner skills, and you will also have previously watched part 1, which is the theory side of it, when I walk you through this particular unit for week 2, session 2, and then to circle back and show you how we're going to be marking what we look for in task 2, which is what we covered in week 2 tonight for CHCLEG001. I'll sign off and we'll see you next Tuesday in class. Thanks, everybody.